So it's my honor to welcome all of you this morning to this public defense, PhD public defense. My name is Pamela Hanakwa, and I'm the Dean of the School of Liberal and Performing Arts, and so I'll be chairing today's defense. I would like to very quickly introduce the very key people, the reason we are here today. First and foremost, it's my honor to introduce Ms. Naomi Namanya, who is the PhD candidate. Naomi is presenting her work, which is titled Ethical Implications of Uganda's Education System on Graduates. Congratulations, Naomi, for getting to this stage, and we look forward to the presentation. Ms. Namanya was supervised by two colleagues, Dr. Pade Musana, who is with us in the room, and Professor Anthony Mugaga, who is also with us in the room. Congratulations, supervisors, and thank you for making time for this candidate. With us is the independent reader. Some of you prefer to call him opponent, but he's not Noop. And our independent reader today is Professor Peter John Opio from Gulu University. You're most welcome, Prof. We appreciate your time and effort and all the support that you give us as a school and as a college. Okay, and it's my honor to introduce the members of the panel. We have Professor Helen Nambali-Rankabala, from the Department of Religion and Peace Studies. We have Dr. Hafiz Walsimbi, who will be or should be online. Dr. Hafiz Walsimbi, if you've logged in, please shout out to us so that we know you're there. And if he's not there, and then probably he's still trying to log in. And then we have Dr. David Onen. You're most welcome, from the East African School of Higher Education, right? I don't know if I get it right. Yes, so Dr. Onen is a senior lecturer from that school. And then we have Dr. Chris Tuhirire from the Department of Religion and Peace Studies. We have Dr. Christine Babazimpiangu from the Department of Religion and Peace Studies. I hope that I've introduced all the panelists. And then just a few, the way the defense will proceed, and a bit of housekeeping rules to guide all of us. I will ask that we all either put our phones in silent or vibration mode so that we're not interrupting with the flow of events. And that those who have any comments, of course, wait until it's opportunity for them to give the comments. So in terms of timelines, this is how we're going to proceed. The candidate will have 30 minutes to take us through her work. Farouk, I would suggest that we give her, you indicate 25, and then we shall have the 5 after. And then the critical discussant will have up to 60 minutes to engage with the candidate. And members of the panel altogether have 30 minutes. And then the public, both physical here and online, will have up to 10 minutes. So what that means is that if you have any questions for the candidate, you'll have to be as precise as you could perhaps be. And then after that, the panel will retreat to take a verdict, and then we'll come back to announce. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the candidate, Naomi, to take us through her work. Naomi, it is your day, and we are here to learn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. I am Naomi Namanya, as I've been introduced, and I'm so glad to take you through my work. Thank you so much, professors, the respondents, and all of you who made it today. And I look forward to your insights. So what did I do? I handled ethical implications of Uganda's education system on graduate. And before that, allow me to go through an overview. The research problem I went out to research on was we do not know whether the formal education given in Uganda helps the graduates to realize their divine mandate. And the research question, or what guided it, was that the formal education given and received in Uganda, is the formal education given and received in Uganda meeting the standard of what God mandated humanity to be? The existing gaps, there was inadequate literature providing the link between education and divine mandates, and it followed an argument that an appropriate education capacitates graduates to realize their divine mandate and behave in a certain way. Methodologically, I have used pragmatic philosophy with its related methodologies. Findings and conclusion is that there are ailments in a UFES, so what I abbreviated as UFES, that deter it from providing an appropriate education to enable most of the graduates to realize their divine mandate. And because of this, it becomes unethical. Why? Because there is an clear philosophy, there is a truncated purpose, and given this, I propose a model. So let's see the details. I took ethics as a right or wrong conduct of UFES in providing education for graduates to realize their divine mandate, and the study is anchored in a religion, where the ethical lens is moral theology that takes us to Judeo-Christian ethics that gives us a standard against which we are measuring the system. I therefore take a text in Genesis 1:28, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. By implications, I basically mean outcomes, and then graduates will be taken or seen as products. Since I'm using religious ethics as a standard, then divine mandate brings in an element of theology. Appropriate education brings in the side of education. These are three disciplines together which centralize around humanity. And these three open up to other critical disciplines of philosophy, history, politics, economics, sociology, and psychology. So it is a multidisciplinary study in nature. The question stands, does a formal education given and received in Uganda meet the standard of what God mandated humanity to do? Or simply put it, does education empower or disempower? Answers to this question raise critical issues, especially ethical in nature, as to how Ugandan graduates of what we call human capital should be trained to handle population, and also given the fact that we have a young generation to propel Uganda's development, to deal with technological advancement as well as handling generational differences globally, because we realize that, generations keep on changing, and unfortunately, our system is not changing and we are not meeting those demands. Significantly, it has significance to the general Ugandans as well as all stakeholders, and to Ugandans, it is to reshape the education terrain, view education for just social justice, influence public debates and discourses on philosophy and purpose of education, call for systems alignment of education as well as national development plans. So why did I go for this study? As a religious leader, as a religious scholar, I pose some questions. What is education? What is education for Ugandans? What is education for? When I bring up those questions, maybe you may say that I am a philosopher, but then the implicit question that comes up as in to who or whom are we designing education for becomes a theological issue. I do have a background in education, and then at master's I did theology, but also we know that religion and education are intrinsically interrelated, and how religion sets a beliefs that interrelate with human beings, and then through education, these beliefs are transferred. Again, when I read through some reviews and some commissions, I found out that there are always recommendations, but in most cases, there are implementational challenges. I posed why. And then from the workplaces, I have had the complaints from employers concerning the recent graduates. Again, I posed why. As I was still pondering about those whys, I came across Sekam and Kajibi's quote that when a product is defective, then the system which produced it should be examined. And then Socrates also once said that an examined life is not worth living for men. So those are some of the reasons why I came up to examine our system. I have been exposed being in a Ugandan education system. I'm a trained licensed teacher, adaptive and theologian, and a Christian mother. Those are the areas where the research took place. And the argument still stands that an appropriate education enables graduates to realize their divine mandate, and the reverse is true. Or simply say that there is a mismatch between the education given and received by graduates in Uganda and the assignments available to realize their divine mandate. Is this education good or bad? So what is an appropriate education? It simply means a contextual and relevant education that enables graduates to discover or explore their God-given potential, dreams, passion, talents, gifts, and then they thrive in life. I came up with a framework of analysis where I set conditions from which we are able to see the graduates realize their potential. And within this system, we need to have a clear philosophy, a clear purpose, involvement of all stakeholders, as well as enabling environment. If these conditions are in place, then the system is providing us with an appropriate education, it becomes ethical. But if it is not, the reverse is true, and it also breeds unethical graduates, and this led to the development of the model. So what is education? It comes from Latin words, educare, educere, educatum, and educo. And all these are connoting to bringing up, drawing out, nourishing, pointing to helping someone develop or progress in life. Nelson Mandela looks at education as a transformative power. If you would allow me to read his quotation, that education is a great engine of a personal development. It is through education that the daughter of the peasant can become a doctor, that the son of mine worker can become the head of the mine, that the child of farm workers can become the president of great nation. It is what we make out of what we have and not what we are given that separates us from another. And to me, education is basically an analogy where you throw a cassava cutting or a sugarcane stem and they grow in basic environment. You don't need to put manure, you don't need to put anything. We also need to know that there was indigenous education before formal education. And it basically concentrated on experiential learning, contextualized curriculum. The world was a classroom, continuous assessment with feedback for improvement, gender-based, result-oriented, or what Sekama called production learning. But you know, our civilization was cut short by Western education, which came under the cover of Western culture that later on transformed into formal education. And this formal education had different names of European education, Western education, colonial education, and then later on it changed to formal education for Uganda's case. And its major characteristic was literacy, pointing to a particular specialization, basically to aid in colonialism, as Tiberondwa puts it. Actually, in Onyankoya Uchiga, education is reduced to Okshoma, which connotes to literacy, and this has been the case to date. So what is divine mandate? There are two words, and divinus comes, it is a Latin word that is an adjective having the nature of God, and then mandate is from mandatum in Latin, which is a verb to assign authority to. In other words, humankind was given instructions from God with authority to continue his work of creation. And in a way, we are systems of what I called vicegerents. We also needed to get to terms with the context under which this divine mandate is. And I picked it, or I was able to get it from verse 26 of chapter 1 of Genesis, where God made man in his own image. We did not make any assignment, we did not apply, but he decided on his own and he made man by himself. And in verse 27, he made man and woman. And then in 8:28, he gives them a mandate. So to be fruitful is a state of excellency, being given capacity to exercise and improve, and then increases to add value to something, or what we call innovation and creativity. And then to occupy, to feel is not to occupy space as matter, but to invent, look for solutions, and fill the earth with pleasant things. And then to subdue is take charge and control in relation to the Creator's excellency. Those are some of the anthropological, theological characteristics that I picked from Genesis 1 and 2, which later on I will compare with the 21st century skills, which language we understand. So what is at stake? We have low budgets. We've been training for white-collar jobs for a long time. We have teacher-centered pedagogy, one-size-fits-all curriculum, moral dysfunctionality, education classes where there are good schools and bad schools. And then while we are still there, World Bank 2019 brings in a report on Human Capital Index that a child who finishes educational cycle in Uganda is productive at 38%. And then the Inter-University Council for East Africa 2014 brought out a report that Ugandan graduates are half-baked at 63%. And then Ministry of Gender 2016 revealed a discrepancy between job requirements and graduate competencies of 26%, with not enough jobs at 34%. We have some transport challenges, liberalization at its peak. And then there is another student who wrote to the examiner that, "Are you still wasting your time on me? Now listen to my story. I am the stone which the builder refused." And this is a student who has declared that you had failed. We have these other innocent souls who are just seated there. You wonder if they're in class or not. And then another one is just sweating as if maybe he's sick as he does exams. Then we have examinational malpractices at its peak. In the corner right here, these are some of the Chambogo graduates who were bragging around with their friends that they told them to cheat. They did not. Although they apologized, the message had reached where it needed to be. So what is my problem? Education, which is supposed to be developing our human potential that lies within each one of us to make the world better, incidentally, it is not doing it. From observation, interaction with the world of work, and empirical evidence, there is a general outcry by employers about the recent graduates pointing to the missing links between missing links within education and training, which falls short of imparting skills, knowledge, and values in a relevant manner. And because of this, it is bringing us a theological problem of dehumanizing our graduates. This study was guided by 3 objectives: to explore the philosophy guiding UFES since independence and its implications on graduates' divine mandate, to examine the general purpose, and then later on create a pathway for an appropriate education. And those are corresponding research questions. Much as we are still juggling what we are doing here, the world has moved on in education. We are now talking of 5th industrial revolution. And then for us here, we are still perceiving 4th industrial revolution, which brought a lot of ethical challenges with the machines and human beings. But then the 5th industrial revolution is trying to look for the collaboration, and that's where my work fits. At the African level, we still have a concern of colonial education, and then within Ugandan literature, there were gaps of unclear philosophy, but also not connecting it to divine mandate. So methodologically, as I already told you, I used pragmatic paradigm, action, research, design, and with mixed methods, I used convergent parallel. Then with the qualitative, I used purposive and snowballing. I interacted with the National Curriculum Development Center, Ministry of Education, UNEB, respondents or officials. Then I also had some vice chancellors, employers, educational research bodies, HR, human resource, and then human capital, human coaches, EDPs, iOS, DOS, HODs, and others. And then I did in-depth with the telephone interviews, conversations, FGDs, as well as a structured questionnaire, and then social media and seminars, as well as conferences. And then the work was thematized with process tracing, SGS hermeneutics, and then documentary. And then on quantitative, I did multi-stage sampling with a sample of 385. Then I did structured and open questionnaire, and then I transferred the work to software, which was later on analyzed as univariate analysis, and then all of it was translated and integrated at analysis and interpretation stage. So what are my findings? Various respondents revealed that the philosophy guiding UFES is not clear, rather is an amalgamation of philosophies. And then, according to the interviews, that's how it went. I will not go through the details. We shall maybe go to it later. And then the teacher graduates, I proposed to them the main philosophies, and idealism was picked higher, none, realism, and then pragmatism was at 44. And of course, when we talk about philosophy, we bring out the curriculum. And then I asked who does the preparation. It was National Curriculum Development Center. And then what kind of knowledge that is acquired? 84% went for knowledge for passing exams. Allow me to go through first. We shall get back those percentages later. And that is how I perceived or I conceptualized the different philosophies. We have ideal, NRM, individualistic, stratified, religious, and secular. And then objective 2, the general purpose of education was not known to stakeholders at 54%. And then teacher graduates told me at 69% that they know it. And when I asked them to state it, they did not. And then I asked the informers of Uganda's formal educational aims. And then donor countries, educationists and politicians hiked higher. Ugandan communities was at 48%. This resulted into multiple purposes of education as formal, denominational, political, monetary, socialization, parents' purpose. At parents' purpose, I asked them if they are taking part in the children's education, and they said yes at 69%. But when I asked them how, they only told me they are on financial concerns. And then I asked students' purpose. I was dealing with the university students. They told me they have no purpose at 60%. That is a bit worrying. My climax was graduates. I asked them good 3 questions that, let me know the professional preference. If you like your job, they told me they liked it at 95%. And then when I asked them a second one, where I'm connecting profession, passion, and interest, it dropped to 58%. And then when I asked them if their expectations were met, it went to 45, meaning that some people are working just to earn a living and not necessarily liking what they are doing. I had Likert scale. The 21st century skills, innovativeness, and creativity were scored lower. Intellectual values, critical thinking, and problem solving also lower. And then main core values, truthfulness, consideration, honesty, resilience, and citizenship were also lower. And then core competencies, decision making, leadership, and computer skill were also lower. Then since I was dealing with the philosophy, I again asked them, what do you have the desired values and beliefs and knowledge in the current education system? They told me yes at 56%. And then I asked them if we are to incorporate them, if they are, because they are those ones who told me no. If we are to incorporate them, at what stage should we put them there? They told me it can be done at another stage with 85%. So what are the implications? We have colonial legacy that is taking us to elitist mentality, curriculum design, development, and implementational challenges. We have the rise of international curricula, and all these, most of them are perpetuating formal purpose of education, which is not enabling the graduate to realize their divine mandate. Education and politics, most of the policies do favor the government in place. And then we have underfunded education, continuous support from EDPs. And then on liberalization of education, examination-oriented curriculum and assessment takes 82%, rote learning at 54%. We have increased nursery and primary boarding schools, a lot of traffic jam, and examination malpractice at 78%. Then implications of multiple purposes of education is that most of the graduates are lazy, dependents with poor attitude towards work, corrupt self-will, worth, whom I called planned graduates or genetically modified graduates. And because of this, they are becoming copycats and they cannot realize their full mandate. Briefly, that's how they look like. They get into the school when they are okay, and that's how they are going out. It is worrying. Again, Mandela's quote, destroying any nation does not require the use of atomic bombs or the use of long-range missiles. It only requires lowering the quality of education and allowing cheating in the examinations by the students. Patients die at the hands of such doctors. Buildings collapse at the hands of such engineers. Money is lost in the hands of such economists and accountants. And then humanity dies at the hands of such religious scholars. Justice is lost at the hands of such judges. A collapse of education is a collapse of a nation. Conclusively, there are elements within Uganda's formal education system that deter it from providing an appropriate education to enable most of the graduates realize their full potential, and this makes it unethical. And this is because of an unclear philosophy, truncated purpose, and given this, I propose a model. So Einstein says that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. In other words, you cannot keep on forcing the fish to climb the tree. The fish must go in the water, the monkey must climb, and let us respect one another. So this is the model that I came up with for a graduate to realize their divine mandates or full potential. We need a general philosophy of the country. Then we prioritize education. We set clear philosophy of education, clear purpose. Then we involve stakeholders. And at this stage, I proposed the National Planning Authority. We have policy makers. We have Ministry of Education. I mean, Ministry of Finance and Planning. We have parents, and all these must look at the resources and come up with a way forward on how to invest them. Then we train a team of people to run this system. We have teachers, sociologists, psychologists, coaches, or what we call mentors. Then we make a needs assessment where we need to find out what do our learners want by identifying their skills, abilities, gifts, and interests. And then after that, we create an open curricula to address the creativity and innovativeness, and then we set up the systems of technology, from the family level, technology systems, and then we have innovation, we have specialized academies, we have apprenticeship centers, talents and gifts shows. And then from there, we change our assessment to cohort and competence. And from there, the organizations will be connecting to these students who have done their work and they have gone through it. And then they also connect to the centers, and then they also connect to the investors, and then they also connect to the trainers. Areas of further inquiry is that there is a need for general philosophy of education in Uganda. There is need for policy review. There is need for revamping the system. I call for new formulations with emphasis on skills. And then we need to leverage research for education and development. And then the limitations are that being an ethical study and also being carried out in a corruption system, I found some challenges. I also made a policy clash of arts versus sciences. I had a monopoly, there was a monopoly of research, which I clarified, and then there was no definite number of graduates in the system. My contributions are that both practical and scholarly. Practically, I've come up with a model, and then I and other parents made a submission to Education Policy Review Commission 2022 on the role of parents in education. And then I also became a secretary and the same on the School of Liberal and Performing Arts. And then I'm also adopted on the team that is researching on home education in Uganda, the study of its nature, demographics, reasons, and styles. Scholarly contribution, I have published a chapter with one of the supervisors, Uganda's ethical need for leveraging research and education. And then another chapter will be published by African Theology on the effects of COVID-19 on gender within Uganda's education system, a religious perspective. Yeah, an article to Mawazo, ethical impropriety in the curriculum review process, a case of Uganda's lower secondary curriculum. Then I have new wine in the old bottles, an ethical reflection on Uganda's competence-based curriculum. And then I have also formulated a policy paper draft formulating Uganda's educational philosophy towards SDG 4, and then employable graduates, an ethical reflection on Uganda's philosophy of education. So I do thank the Lord so much for the far He brought me. I thank my family, specifically my husband, who could give me articles almost every day when I was writing. And my children, thank you so much for giving me a shoulder. My supervisors, I do not have words to express what you have done, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for Geda Henkel Fellowship with Choose Fraternity under Dr. Nabutani and Levis, specifically for availing me some funds for carrying out my conferences, because I got a lot from those conferences. The doctoral committee, thank you so much for your positive criticisms. The mentors, I have a list, as you have seen, being a multidisciplinary study, I did a lot of consultations. The department, thank you so much for giving me 1 year off to complete in the 3-year stipulated time. My sister department of history, thank you so much. My brother department of philosophy, I'm grateful. And then College of Education and External Studies, thank you so much. Friends, cohortees, respondents, if you did not give me information, I would not have made it today. The research team, thank you so much. And room 75 members, thank you so much. So as I finish, I would like to finish with Abraham Maslow's quotation. Let the musician sing, let the artist draw, let the poet write, let the historian tell stories. You can add on the list. Let the chef give us nice food. So as you, what do you think you can do best? Apart from teaching and marking scripts, or apart from what you're doing wherever you are, then how do you feel about your work in terms of your interests, desires, and abilities? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naomi. It's now my honor to invite Professor Opio to engage the candidate.
No, I'm okay. I actually prefer to stand because it keeps me awake. Yes. The chair of this panel, Dean, School of Performing Arts, the supervisors, members of the examining team, all of you here present. I'd like to re-echo what I've always said upon being accorded this unique honor to to engage with a PhD candidate, I want to thank you, the CHUS, the administration, and all the team for this highly humbling opportunity for me to enrich myself on a silver plate through such and many other dissertation pieces I have gone through in this school. I don't take it for granted. All the more so because we know that no academic institution worth its name can make any claim to being competitive and competent if it does not nurture and, sorry to use the word, produce future scholars. PhD is not a walk in the park. And the production of the PhD is crucial, not just to the survival of a university, of a unit, a department, a schools such as yours, but crucial and critical to the national competitiveness. A nation is as strong and as competitive as the brains it produces are competitive. And therefore, that is why, no matter what people say, education as we know it will continue to remain the bedrock of competitive, progressive, cohesive, and harmonious human society. So thank you for that. Now, I'd like to turn directly then to the candidate, Ms. Naomi Namanya. When I received a telephone call from the dean of the school requesting my availability to serve as a critical interlocutor to your work, and she informed me the work is on the ethical implication of education systems on graduates, I not only unhesitantly obliged with much pleasure, I was elated and exuberant with joy. Your topic, ethical implications of Uganda's educational system on graduates, is at once timely and opportune. To the best of my knowledge, no such previous work on ethical implications of Uganda's educational system on graduates has been undertaken at such depth, breadth, and scope. As an ethicist myself, philosopher and theologian, business scholar and economist, your topic evoked unprecedented prima facie excitement. I could not wait to set my hands to read it. Given that education is in the best of times and the worst of times, and considering the many paradoxes within the education system in our country and beyond, and a plethora of tools and strategies to revamp education, your topic is vital and not one of those dead horse topics. I congratulate you wholeheartedly for choosing a topic of such great currency and relevance. When your work was delivered to me and I browsed through it, I quickly discovered this is not one of the mainstream business as usual dissertations I have read and examined in the past. This is an extraordinary piece in the literal sense of the word. In French, they say extraordinaire. Yes, academically unconventional. Out of the ordinary piece, even esoteric in content, style, as well as tone. The topic is deceptively ordinary, but you developed it in a manner that defies our conventional academic discourse. In this dissertation, which you have carefully written, one finds just about everything on the education system in Uganda from pre-colonial times to date. To borrow a marketing expression, the work is a one-stop shop on everything educational. You like Latin, they say sermo de omnis. You pick ordinary academic concepts, juxtapose them to related or unrelated concepts and facts, then develop and use them extraordinarily in your free will way, ingenuously, but sometimes disingenuously, to advance your argument. For example, in section 114, page 18 and 19, where you explain the Judeo-Christian ethics on which you anchor your thesis, you amalgamate ethics, biblical philosophy, God as a moral being, and I'm quoting, laying out the 10 commandments in Exodus 22 to 17 and Deuteronomy 5, 6 to 21 as guidelines for Jewish life that are shared by Christians, which contribute to education as summarized by Jesus in the New Testament. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with your soul, heart, and mind. And you conclude, this emphasizes the comparability of two testaments, which is clever by half as well. Equally unique and ingenious is the tone of your work. It reads like a classical music piece. wait a moment, which oscillates between the Handel type harmonious philharmonic lyrics and Bach's rough short cacophonic adage. Although you make no claim to being a music maestro in your work, perhaps you are one in your past life, if you're a Hindu. You ingeniously expose the cacophony, the ramblings and the facade within the various education acts and wrought within our education system in unprecedented way. The work reads like a piece from the Book of Lamentations, and you've exposed the moral decay and mirage within the formal education system without let or hindrance. For instance, discussing examination malpractice at 4132 pages 118 and following. You liken the moral turpitude within education to, and I like this word, to a systematic pandemic in which what is a malpractice in the examination system has become the new normal, whitewashed as a moral good and exemplary act of, using your words in quote, helping learners pass. A transvaluation of values in the nation sense of the word. Not only is the reader shocked into disbelief at the level of moral decay within the education, but also led to despair, as I feel upon reading your graphic report, what the education enterprise is all about now and where we are headed as educators. I am reminded of the line in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 14, verse 17. Therefore, you will say to them, let my eyes overflow with tears night and day, and let them not cease. For the virgin daughter of my people has been crushed with a great blow, with a very serious and severely infected wound, because both prophet and priest, you can supply, parents and lecturers, ply their trade through the land and have no knowledge. I have all along known that our education is in a sorry state, but your gloves of work has shown how grossly underestimated the scope, depth, and intensity of this moral turpitude within the system is. I salute you for this accomplishment. One other poignant assumption renting aspect of your work relates to the purpose of education in section 437. You reported findings highlight existential issues important to learners, not addressed by this formal education system and a plethora of education reform measures. Namely, what ultimately is the purpose of education from the perspective of learners, beyond passing exams, obtaining good jobs, and making money? The paradox of emptiness issuing from successfully completing formal education is well articulated in the story you recount of a lawyer, which I find worth citing. On page 147, I am not from a poor background. I went to good schools, passed well, attended the university of my choice, and now work as a lawyer. I'm earning a lot of money. I drive a good car, live in the house of my choice, am married, you didn't say with a beautiful wife, have children, and send them to good schools as my parents did. But when I sit down, I feel an emptiness. I feel unfulfilled. And what do I do? In this, I'm reminded of one great author's work that I've always shared in the field of business. The paradox of success when winning at work means losing at life. I'm also reminded of a young man, Alex, a young Briton personally known to me, whose parents are my in-laws. Like most zealous parents, his father, a professor of bioengineering, and mother, a medical doctor consultant, decided he should follow their footsteps as scientists and study neurosurgeon, which he did, although he hated every bit of the study. He refused every job offer in this field, but instead chose to work with the hobos. These are the homeless people, and yobs, you know, the derelict and despised people of the society, and later founded an NGO, Dignity Foundation. Dear doctoral candidate, you are able to achieve this because of your courage to break away from the academic conventions on research. Once more, I congratulate you on this achievement. That's why. The chair of this panel, members of the examination team, head of department, religious and peace studies, and all of you here present, the dean, allow me to register my most sincere admiration to the supervisors of this extraordinary dissertation for the extraordinary resilience, perseverance, and patience they exhibited in guiding this work. Like gynecologists, you patiently nursed the candidate through the gestation period of this extraordinary work, full term, cognizant of your duty, and didn't give up on the candidate. Yes, I want to mention this because often people assume it is a walk in the park guiding a candidate, and especially when the candidate has the courage of their conviction, it is not an easy task. And I want to acknowledge that this is, midwifing. Sometimes a pregnancy that could actually result into stillbirth, or maybe even ectopic at some times, is not easy. While I commend your efforts to move the problematic of education systems on graduates in Uganda beyond the traditional ethics and choose to anchor it instead in what you call the divine mandate, purportedly as a more comprehensive framework, which we shall debate shortly, there are salient issues that need to be clarified by you. This is a doctoral and not a journalistic piece or an extended blog, and as such must be placed under lens. And this is why I'd like to engage with you. Let us start with what, in your estimation, is foundational to your work. The Divinus Mandatum. I like your use of Latin. In fact, when you mention Latin, then you make me feel elated. The central claim of your research is that education in Uganda has not lived up to its promise because it is not adequately anchored on the divine mandate enshrined in Genesis 1:26 and following. I find your attempt to apply this verse to education a gross extrapolation of a biblical text out of its original context and unconvincing. Unlike Genesis 1:26, Deuteronomy 4:6-4-9, which is part of the Jewish Shema Israel, embodies the mitzvah, which is the religious commandment for parents to teach their children the necessity of anchoring life on one God, Yahweh, and the commandment. I'm sure you, since you say you're a theologian, you're aware what this is, what I'm talking about. Your quest to appropriate interpretations by biblical commentators who are not terrifically attested exegetes, such as Westermann, cited by Kachumba in reference to the mandate to multiply and fill the earth, claiming the verse refers, I quote, not only the capacity to beget, conceive, and bear, but the whole process of propagation through conception and birth, from the choice of partner right up to the care and education of the child, pages 25 and 26, is disingenuous and unconvincing. You further claim that this view is shared with Thomas Aquinas. Actually, you don't even use Thomas, you say Aquinas and Augustine, citing Goggins 2022. It's muddling and uncanny. Conventional scholarship requires you mention and discuss the precise text by the author, in this case, St. Thomas. Are you referring to Thomas in the Summa Theologiae and Augustine? Is it in the Civitas? So these are not mentioned. Please kindly allay my objection to your use of the so-called divine mandate in Genesis 1:26 and provide compelling arguments to sustain your claim, namely anchoring education in the divine mandate is salutary for education.
Thank you so much. Concerning Westermann, and then Aquinas and Augustine, I found out that they had more or less a same view of bringing together education and education for the heart. And the reason why I'm bringing them here is that, you know, it's not a matter of having these children conceived and put in the world, but what matters is the education that you give them. And this very view relates to the Jewish tradition of divine mandate, of which I'm advancing.
Yes, you're explaining exactly what you have said, but is there any reference to any work of St. Thomas that you can recall here? Because, you know, this is an academic piece,
okay.
and you need to pry through those conventions. Yeah, what are they? Is it Summa Theologia? And from where? And any word that, you know, really corroborates what you're trying to say. And the same with Augustine.
Okay.
Is it the Civitas or any other writing of Augustine? And where is it precisely that you can? Because, you know, in academic convention, you just don't, bring good things to fit. They must speak for themselves. So as an interlocutor with you, I want to, this is going to be a new discovery for me to visit. Actually St. Thomas in Summa Theologia Secunda, or what, and so on, actually states this, and this is in line with what Wetterman says this concerning this. Because to date, I have not seen that actually St. Thomas Aquinas, had this kind of discussion, analysis. Just educate me.
Okay, it's I think I'm concentrated on picking his statements from another author, but as you're saying, going back to their tradition, to their own writings, that one can be revisited.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Be that as it may, on the other hand, you seem to support the claim by scholars like Tiverandwa, 1998, whom you purposefully, very liberally cite, that it is the same Western missionary education in which your divine mandate is biblically anchored that has outfoxed indigenous education, which offered, I quote.
Which page is that?
Pardon? Page. I'm still going on. Which offered children with skills, knowledge, and values to become self-reliant, caring, and patriotic citizens. That's page 55. What I'm saying, interestingly, yeah, you seem to support claims by scholars like Timberandwa that, Western education, missionary education, and interestingly, you anchor your divine mandate in biblically anchored Western here, which claims that children with skills, actually the claim is that, Western missionary education has outfoxed our traditional education, which really offered skills, knowledge, and values to become self-reliant and patriotic citizens. Although I think before those days, we had tribal communities, no citizens. This, you maintain in agreement with Teberandwa, was a subterfuge to, and I'm quoting, discourage Ugandans from their African beliefs in spirits and other barbaric practices to believe in the European God. That's page 54. In other words, the Western European God is a hubris. Apart from the trivialness of the claim made against Western missionary education vis-a-vis indigenous education in Uganda, is indeed disingenuous and preposterous on your part to advocate to re-anchor formal education on the same biblically derived divine mandate. In other words, can you try to allay, from what I read from your text, that there is actually no contradiction between your claim to biblically anchored, therefore Western Christianity-based divine mandate, and traditional African education?
Okay. I think here what we need to know is that the way I'm explaining divine mandate, though from the Bible, I'm centralizing a human being, God's creature. And if I'm talking about a human being, this does not necessarily mean what the Europeans brought to us as the gospel. Because being a messenger You can be sent to go and do something, and another person has their own agenda, like the way how the European missionaries were sent. It may not necessarily be that what they were sent for, they knew it actually, but they came anyway. And when we look at Tuberonda's work, we realize that underneath there was colonialism, or the colonialists sending them. And they came and did what they did, but that one does not make any contradiction as far as a human being is concerned. Because whether you are an African, whether you are a white, whether you are who, you are created in God. And depending on how you take it up to believe or view it, you remain a human being. So I'm centralizing divine mandate to bring out the humanness in us, to look at the creature that God created. Because I can give you some message, and you along the way you decide on how to take it. And honestly, when we look at what was done, when you check the history of Uganda, you realize that missionaries, as Tuberonda also puts it, missionaries were forerunners of colonialism, meaning that they were almost doing two things in one. So I may not necessarily say, okay, divine mandate in the Bible, then the Westerners are the ones who are bringing up the gospel, but I'm looking at the creature of God made in his own image.
Yes, okay. In the same vein, while handling the current debate on formal education in Uganda, section 27, and by way of an apologia for the divine mandate, you note that many wide-ranging attempts to redeem formal education in Uganda by scholars and pundits like Mushabe and Arinaitwe, 2013, Muganga, 2018, have truncated, stalled as false starts. You claim, I quote, the suggestion made by Muganga, 2018, on authentic learning focuses on training workforce and not necessarily enfolding education as an enabling factor in fulfilling the divine mandate, which is not a complete solution to Uganda's challenge of formal education. In other words, an old skin cannot hold a new wine. That's from your text. Is a divine mandate, after all, an old skin which cannot hold new wine and therefore vacuous?
Thank you. As I already stated earlier, the way I'm viewing divine mandate, although, we are finding a constant that most of these words are explained in Latin, in Greek, and so on.
And even Hebrew, you use.
And Hebrew. But when you take it back and you look at creation stories, you'll find out that, you know what? There was a creator. And if this creator made a human being, why did he make this human being? And I think that is one of the reasons what I started with. Yes, education is there, but for who? Who is this person? Who is this human being? That is my center. Why should I bother about this human being? Because this human being is transferring characteristics of his creator. And if it is the case, then helping people to have skills is okay. Helping people to learn different things is okay. As you had already picked up the quotation by the lawyer, I think she was a she had all the money, all the vehicles, all the whatever, but she felt unfulfilled. There was that unfulfillment. And this is where I come in from and connect. Okay, a human being, what am I here for? What is my purpose? What is it that is helping me to reach where I'm going? And this is where I'm saying, yes, they have tried to intervene, true, and I acknowledge that. But we need to take it further and realize that actually, apart from having skills, apart from having good jobs, apart from having money, you still need that fulfillment in your heart.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Also, in a related way, still just on the divine mandate, because you're trying to, you're thinking broad. You're trying to find an anchor for our education system, which is in a sorry state, and you use this divine mandate. Now, I was also thinking, well, in the Ugandan context, Ugandan educational system, and you're talking about a national philosophy. What would be the justification of anchoring this divine mandate into the national philosophy? The reason I'm asking this, I think we all agree and we know that Uganda is not a theocratic nation. Are we together? Yes. Uganda is not a theocratic nation. That is, it is not under the mandate, not ruled, under the divine mandate, the rules from the Bible and so on. And that's why I think, when Joseph Kony came, there was every effort to try and dispel his inroad into the country because he wanted the country to be under the 10 Commandments. And so how would you convince people in the parliament and the pundits who draw the educational policies that actually the way forward is the divine mandate? And also considering that we have plurality of religions, and there are so many other divine books. There is the Quran, and there are so many other things. There is the Sanskrit, the Bhagavad Gita, and considering all the other communities here. How would they react to this?
I would respond to this with the information I wrote on page 21, where Uganda is considered as a predominantly Christian country with 82 to 84%. I do acknowledge the presence of other religions, and they are actually around with us. But per statistics or per reports that I got from the Office of International Religious Freedom, those are the statistics. They are telling me, you know what, it is 80%. So if 80% are Christians, then I think adopting this kind of education, it would be of help. But besides, whether you are a Muslim, whether you are a Shintoist, whether you are a Confucianist, you're going to find out that within these different beliefs, there is also what they call their God. There is also what they call, values. Actually, I read most of the Indian educationists, and I found out that most of them are actually considering education as freedom to, they equate it like to salvation. For them, when you have been educated to a certain extent, you've been freed from all kinds of opposition, oppression, and you are free to think, you're free to look at things in a different way. And in that case, I think in my setting as a Judeo-Christian thinker, it applies to a Judeo-Christian a Christian country. But when you transfer the same concept to other religions, it does actually help. Thank you.
Okay, I do. I see your reasoning. Although I would also have said, especially with regards to to the Muslims, there's a great affinity. They are called Abrahamitic religion. Yes, so we're not going into that. Now, let us address ourselves to the nature of your work. In chapter 3 on research methodology, section 3.3 to 3.3.3, you claim your work is multidisciplinary in nature and consists of ethical, theological, and educational components. In explaining what this all means, you note on page 71, I quote, through descriptive analytic ethics, that's the work, identified problematic state of education in Uganda. Analytically and exegesis hermeneutics, it identified and defined the problem of discrepancy education offered to graduates created in the image of God. At 3:10:1:4, you even evoke exegesis hermeneutic analysis as a data analysis tool. In my mind, this is simply extraordinary and obfuscating. There is little evidence of serious theological, exegetical, or ethical discourse in the work. Don't you think in making this claim to multidisciplinarity, you are biting more than you can chew, or even biting what you cannot chew?
When we come to the multidisciplinarity of the work, where I bring out the ethical part, the educational part, and what is the other? And the theological part, what I looked at was that ethically, or when we go to ethics, ethics has got its own ways of research. And these are descriptive, analytical, and what is the third one? I think I'll remember. But using these two, when you go to description, for instance, if I may put it in the context, the way I was doing it, because this is methodology, I went out and asked, I was interviewing people, or what I called respondents. And when I asked them, you know, with ethical terms or terminologies, it looked rather complex. So what I did, I borrowed the descriptive part of ethics, and then I asked these respondents, okay, let's put it like this. Can you describe for me what is our education, or what is our education system, or what you can see there? You know, I simplified it by describing it, or asking them to give me the characteristics to describe. And then when I came to theological part, after getting those descriptions, I interfaced them with what is in the Bible. I'm like, okay, if some of the respondents have said it is irrelevant, what is a problem? Now at this stage, I analyze two data. I bring this one, which I have gotten from the field, then I get back to the Bible, then I'm like, okay, what is a cutting point, or what is a midway? For this is an irrelevant education. This is the kind of education that is expected for a graduate, or whom I'm calling an image, someone representing God. So what would be the take and the things that I can leave out? So that's how I did it. And then when I come to educational dimension, Dewey puts down the 5 key ways on how to interact, on how to sort problems within education. So I go through those steps, and I ask those key informants, and that's why you see that within my methods, I am using conversations. And where I'm using conversations is where I'm interacting with someone for some good time, and I'm asking them, okay, this is this, how come it came out like this? Or if I can give an example, like objective 3 came out of objective 1 and 2. If it was on premise that if philosophy and the purpose were present, then objective 3 was going to change. And when I continued asking people, objective 1 and objective 2, it was clear that the philosophy and purpose were not clear. Now I had to change the third objective. So in that transition of changing, I would ask those different things connected to, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? But also amongst the respondents, I realized I had to purposely look out for those that could connect divine mandates, education, and humanity. I had those different respondents. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Although you have not yet explained to me what this exegesis hermeneutic analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but no, that can be handled later on elsewhere.
Okay.
Yes. Let us now examine what, in your estimation, is an important recommendation from your work. The model towards the graduate's full potential. Yeah, what you call that? Figure 28 on pages 233 and following. I really wonder whether this shouldn't be more adequately described as a framework rather than a model in the first place. In any case, what is truly new about the so-called model and elements of the model? Not only are many of the components of this model in vogue and already being tried, you have not demonstrated how these recommendations are anchored in the objectives. And please just comment. Yeah. You came up with a model, which is really a great attempt to see, my work is not just a lamentation, as pointed out. I'm trying to put something that is really going to be the proper anchor for education, redeeming education, restoring humaneness in education, and whatever you have said, beautiful. But to what extent, how do you bring this in? I mean, there are some elements which actually are being tried, I think, to be honest. And what is new about the way you look at these elements of the model, which I think is a framework?
Okay, thank you. First of all, we are going to discover that this model is a result of objective 3, which reads as to create a pathway for an appropriate education necessary for graduates to realize their full potential. Now, in this objective, its research question was that what are the stakeholders' views, opinions, and suggestions on an appropriate education necessary for graduates to realize their full potential. So when I asked them what is philosophy that is guiding our system, then what is purpose that is guiding our system? And as the conversation went on, they would tell me, not clear, not sure, not what as I displayed. Then after that, I would ask them, so what can be the way forward, or what can be done? So in the way, or in what can be done is what I'm looking at to form an appropriate education for these graduates. So it is the views that we have got from the respondents that actually make up most of the elements within the model. So it is not just brought from somewhere and put there.
Yes.
Then when we come to the components within this model, maybe you will we shall, we are here to learn. We can be able to distinguish between a model and a framework. But what I had in my mind concerning these components, what is new here is the way I put these elements together. Well, after describing the education system that, at certain point, a few people sit down and make decisions. That is for the sake of new competence-based curriculum. At a certain point, we get a directive because I interacted with officials from the ministry, from National Curriculum Development Center, and with the INCHE also. And, they give you statements like, we are understaffed. Why? Because there is no money, we don't have enough to recruit. Then, I would follow up with all those different concerns. And when I followed them up, I discovered that the education system is hugely hinged on Ministry of Education to make decisions. So, for instance, in one of the elements where I propose bring other stakeholders on board, bring National Planning Authority, because now when you look at the national development plans, you find that we have done one, we have done the second one, the third one. Now as I speak, there is a fourth one, but we are not making a stop to ask, did we achieve what was in the first one? Did we achieve within the second one or third one before we bring another one? We keep on piling up, and there is no that check. So I'm saying, can we bring National Planning Authority on board? Can we look at other policymakers? Can we involve the private investors? One of the conferences I mentioned about, I had a chance to go to Rwanda, and we had that a conference on education on the fourth industrial revolution. And I realized that most of them, they had, within the room, we had the industry, people representing the industry, people representing the technocrats, people representing the government, all of them were on board, trying to see how do we build synergies such that we can work together and improve our system. And I see that here it is still missing because whenever something happens, we are saying, Ministry of Education, like that we would run to National Curriculum Development Center for Curriculum. And when you ask, what is a representation of the students? Because when I showed it on the percentages of how the National Curriculum Development, how curriculum is constructed, students had 21.4% involvement. Students must be having their concerns. Why not involve them? At this stage, why not involve parents? Why not involve community leaders to see what is taking place in the country or within their localities? So that when we are making decisions, if you're saying, we need this much, then if I go to another region, you find there is something to do, there is another thing to do, then we bring all those views together and then we finance education properly. Then also when you come to the theme of training, most of the times when we talk about education, we think that we are training teachers only, but teachers need other people to support. They need other people to carry out some psychological concerns, some assessment, and all that. So, and I also talked about the generational differences. We discover that, generations have gone on changing, and if they are changing, if we trained the teachers alone and we left the human coaches, we left other relevant people who are coming on board, are we achieving what we are looking for? That's why I'm bringing in those people. So in a nutshell, you're going to realize that within this model, there are many other various things that I'm including which have not been tried before. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We are not going to debate that more because who you going to include in this model depend on a number of factors which we cannot debate here, and whom you should keep or you keep out. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing about a PhD dissertation like yours, like the one I did in 1999, yes, long ago, when I defended mine, and my colleagues who have gone through that will say the beautiful thing about it is that when you complete it, you just come to the realization that, after all, you have never been able to solve the world's problem. And I'm reminded also of one of my mentors always told me, a good dissertation is the finished one. The perfect one has never been written, is still out in one's dreams. And you know you've gone through the process. When you start writing, your adrenaline is high. Your ego is in cloud 99, not just cloud 9. And you think you have answers to everything. And then eventually you begin to realize, well, I'm just as good as intelligent as it gets. On completing your work, have you ever stepped back and asked yourself, well, if I were to rewrite this work, what would I have done? This is where scholarship takes place. What is it that you're so passionate about now that you think, after all, may have been misguidedly? And emotively driving you. So what would you do if you were to write this work again? This is just, something. I know it's not the end of the road. If it's the end of the road, please don't even start.
Thank you so much for such a question.
Mm.
It's an interesting one. I think guiding someone to realize who they are is of value to me. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Finally, dear candidate, I most heartily congratulate you for this highly topical work and distinctive accomplishment. Sincerely. I look forward to welcoming you to the Laurea Philosophia Doctoratus at the appropriate time. Congratulations.
Can you give Prof another big round of applause? Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. We're very, very honored. Naomi, how are you? Okay. All right. So it's now the time for us to get comments, feedback from the panelists. But as we do that, I would like to encourage the online audience. If you have questions, please put them in the chat so that we don't spend a lot of time after the engagement of panelists. So I am going to invite Dr. Onen, and you feel free to speak from where you are. I could get the mic, get the microphone to you.
So much. Thank you so much.
I think it's a bit difficult to listen.
Thank you so much, Madam Dean and colleagues present. Congratulations, Madam Naomi, and thank you for that presentation. I now suggest that you come and sit somewhere here so that I see you properly. I've not been seeing you at all. Can you sit somewhere here with your book? Yes, get a chair. Get a chair. May I also thank the opponent for a good job done. In fact, the opponent have learned something from you, that you have to be very friendly and candid to the candidate at the beginning, then you turn around and become very tough. That's what I learned from you, and I think it is a practice I'll take up immediately. I'll take up immediately. Actually, when the opponent was talking, I thought I read a different book, because I examined this book and I did not give the marks that correspond to the praises you gave. So I thought I was very mean, maybe, to the candidate. Did you read the book after the candidate had revised it, or the same book? Hmm?
After the candidate had revised some of the issues.
Yes, he read the work after the candidate has already revised it. That is why the praises were commensurate, because otherwise I would look so mean to the candidate for the marks that I gave. Otherwise, thank you so much, Naomi. I just want to raise one or two concerns. You might have already even corrected them. One, you see that title, Ethical Implications of Uganda's Education System on Graduates. Graduates of National Teachers Colleges, graduates of UTC, graduates of primary schools, graduates of universities. Which graduates are you talking about?
Thank you so much, Prof. The graduates I'm referring to in this book, or in this work, are university graduates.
University
and they
graduates.
are clearly defined.
So if you put it on the title, does it matter for you? On university graduates, it will make it cheaper.
I don't know. I will
Think about it.
about it.
Think about it. Two, the title. When you look at the title, Ethical Implications of Uganda's Education System on Graduates, what would be the purpose statement for that study? If you look at the title, assuming you ask any of these people to look at the title, what does somebody think you have studied just by seeing the title?
You're handling ethics and education.
And just say that the purpose of this study is, complete the sentence.
The purpose of this study is to look at ethics and education within Uganda's education system.
You know why I'm asking that? In the book that I examined, the statements were not matching. The title and the purpose statement were not fitting so well. Ordinarily, when you see that, somebody would probably imagine you examine the ethical implications of Uganda's education system on the graduates, or you explore whatever verb that you use. But of course, exploring would even be much better, since the opponent is saying that you are in a virgin field where not many people have done work. So exploring would be a very good verb to apply. Okay. The purpose of this study was or is to explore the ethical implications of Uganda's education system on university graduates. It's something like that. But the original book did not have a very clear purpose statement. So check on it. Can you go to your pages 11 and 12? Is the book is that one? Is this the revised book? That is the revised one. Then it may not have the point I'm raising. The point I'm raising is that you have paragraphs more than a page.
I revised those.
You revise those. Because those are not good paragraphs in scholarly writing. Okay. Your problem statement, the original one, did not have sufficient evidence of the problem. And we raise it. I don't know whether the new one now has sufficient evidence of the problem. Okay. I raised it earlier. Let me go to methodology. In the original book I examined, you had not described the proper mixed method design that you used, especially in the sequencing of data collection. Whether you collected qualitative and quantitative data at a go, or one followed the other, because the sequencing determined the design. Have you improved it?
Yes, I have mentioned that.
I've seen it now there. I saw it there improve. Originally, it was not like that. Did you really use Ritchie and Morgan's table for determining your sample size?
Yes,
You
what
think
you
so?
found in the first version was actually sorted. With,
didn't use it?
yes.
You didn't
No,
use
I actually used it.
it?
So what I had suggested as I think it was a mix of Crugis and another scholar. So I decided to go on with the Crugis and
Naomi, do you know when we use Richard Morgan's table?
yes.
When what?
When the population is known.
So did you know the population of the graduates?
The population I mentioned, it was not known, but I used the estimates that were written in piece and pieces. So I estimated the population.
Why wouldn't you just use a formula that can be applied when the population is not known, and you save yourself? Because using Christian Morgan means the population is known, just like you're saying it.
True. But when you get information from those different sources, which are not in one place, which I expected,
yes,
you come up with a number of graduates who have come out of Ugandan universities. And especially when you look at 1992, when liberalization of universities was in place. So they are from, for instance, from 1992 onwards or to date, as I speak, we have 66 universities.
No?
Yes.
Six what?
66 universities.
66 universities.
So when you look at the 40,000 graduates they usually bring out in the newspapers and what, so I looked at that, and then I looked at the time. Those are from 1992, 2002. Those are more or less 20 years. So I used that.
You estimated the number of graduates. Okay, but I think if you had used a formula that does not need the actual population to be known, it could save you a lot, because I'm assuming you are reading the table on
now
work.
on Crugis and Morgan, again, when you reach a certain number that is beyond 100 and beyond 1 million or so, when the sample size is 380 cases, you find that the responses go declining. So from 300,
maybe you just continue reflecting on it. There's no problem.
Okay.
At least I know that you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Your research has ethical component. How ethical was it for you to say the VC of Gulu University said this person said this? Are you
I
protecting?
later on removed all those details.
You were not ethical, even when you were studying an ethical study.
Interestingly, when I interacted with these respondents, they consented that I should put their names there. Of course, I had to go through a certain process and what, but in my heart, as people are free with their information. They wanted me to, to put their information and put their names against it. And it actually took me some.
Still, it is your duty to protect them. Because if you quote somebody and say, somebody might even say this stupid statement was made by, I know this man, So
well, at the end of the day,
it's just good to protect them.
Okay.
Yes, just good to protect them. Maybe my last concern is about your data presentation chapter. There are normally three things in the result section: the issue of presentation, the issue of analysis, and the issue of interpretation. Do you know the order of these three things?
Presentation and interpretation and analysis.
Which one comes first? Which one is second? Which one is last?
The way you mentioned them.
Which one?
That's how they call.
Which one? You mentioned them and I hear.
Presentation. First present it, then we interpret it,
No,
then you analyze it.
that's not true.
Hey, it is the other way
That's
around.
not the order. That's not the order. And so even in the book, that mistake was made. The order is presentation, analysis, and interpretation. That's the title of that chapter in Makerere ordinarily. So even the order of writing it up should be.
But it was corrected.
You have corrected it. Thank you. Okay. I think let me stop there. Maybe I want to now advise that this business is not only to just make you pass. We want to train you to replace us and replace us effectively. Okay? So next time you don't read for us the PowerPoint and you don't see how we look like, how we are feeling, because you never saw the guys behind you.
I didn't see them. How were they?
You should have seen them. The guys were annoyed. These guys behind here.
Why?
They were not seeing your beautiful face.
Oh,
You see? They were missing to see your beautiful
I
face.
think that is.
I think they should have changed.
Orientation of that. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe you should have thought about it. This thing is supposed to be interactive. Otherwise, I would have stayed in Gulu and watched you online. Yet I came here, I wanted to see the smiles, I wanted us to interact, and you face me and all that. So next time, for conferences, for public presentation, no looking at the screen except when you are flashing statistics and other important things.
Okay.
You face the audience.
Usually, I have done several presentations, but depending on how you find the setting, that's how you do it.
Yeah, sure. But next time, don't do it like that. Don't get attracted to the screen. Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. And good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Onen. I will now come to Dr. Are you running away? Oh, okay, because I thought, okay.
Thank you very much, Dean and Chair. I think after Dr. Oneni's comment, I feel like I should stand here so that I can see, especially people who are seated here, so that I don't speak when they are behind me, but also we have a good interaction with seeing everyone. Fellow panelists and all of you, the audience, ladies and gentlemen, our candidate, so far, congratulations, the far you have reached. Now, we'll just engage on some few aspects. I was glad to look at your work, and I raised some few aspects that I would like to share with you. First of all, in your work, you keep making reference to the divine mandate, the sole purpose for God creating humanity in his own image. And you rightly quote it in Genesis 1:28, where the key issues are God blessed them and he told them to be fruitful, multiply, fill and subdue the earth, have dominion and all rule over all the other creatures, which now is the anchor of your work. Now you argue that an appropriate education enables graduates to realize this divine mandate. And I love the choice of your words in your work, especially where you use the word appropriate education. I know you are a woman of few words. And so in few words, indeed, how do you explain appropriate education?
To me, appropriate education is a contextual and relevant education.
How relevant?
Relevant as in meeting the needs of learners. Yes.
So when we look at Uganda's formal education system that you refer to a lot in your work, what is it that you find inappropriate?
What I find it inappropriate is that the way we've been doing it is that we receive curriculum which is already designed. And as I showed you in the graphs, when I asked who is who is within this designing of the curriculum, I discovered that maybe you could flash back. I found out that sorry, that most of the decisions that are made are not involving the consumers of the curriculum. This one, yes. So then allow me to change my site. When you look at who is designing, we have a National Curriculum Development Center at 93%. And perhaps the reason is because they are mandated to do so. And then we have the Ministry of Education that provided curriculum in Che. Then we have teachers at 50 and then NCDC consulting stakeholders. And at least 21% are the students who are consuming the knowledge. Meaning that even if you are the one, as allow me to use you as an example here, if your parents and you're giving, you come in your family and you give orders, they will maybe allow today, tomorrow. But if there is no consultation, they will start building a what? A bridge. You will start seeing the differences. So here what happens is that when we bring the already designed curriculum to the learners, we are having issues in how to indicate or how to define the learner's needs. That is what is central to me. What are these learners gifted in? What are these learners able to consume? And again, that's why I gave that illustration of forcing the fish to climb the tree. You know, a fish is created for the waters. You cannot push it up there in the what? In the tree and it goes there. So if the learner is just given instructions, do this, do that, without asking why, without asking what is going on. No wonder when I asked them the purpose of education at the university level, 60% say they did not have a purpose. And if they are saying they did not have a purpose, the reason may be resulting from the curriculum development because they do not take part in constructing the knowledge they are consuming.
So in your perspective, therefore, is it to do with the way the curriculum is designed or the way it is consumed or the consumer?
That is related to the relevancy.
Yes.
It is both or in those different dimensions. Because when you look at their contribution, the way they consume and then the way how the whole general system is organized, it again opens up to other dilemmas. What does the system want for its learners? What does the parent want for its child? What does the child want for himself? So in a way, these three groups are going to have some conflict in a way because, for instance, if you keep on forcing me to climb the tree and I'm a fish, there has to be some resistances. That's why you saw this other student who was writing to the examiner.
Yeah, I think I get it.
And this student, he was declared that, he had failed. But, he opened a script and he wrote that statement. And after that, he listed songs, the name of songs with the people, the authors, I don't know how you call them, with the people who composed them. That's what he submitted for UNEB.
Okay.
So such a person is supposed to be in a music academy,
I
not
think it's okay.
within our
Let's
class.
keep it short. Thanks for that.
Mm,
Let me take you to your findings. You state a finding that the Ugandan formal education system has unethical cases, and I'm putting that in quotes,
mm,
which result in providing this inappropriate education.
mm,
And this is the source of preventing most graduates from implementing the divine mandate.
mm.
Which are these unethical cases? Just to help us, what do you consider to be unethical cases in our Uganda's education system, which seem to be the source of the problem?
Now,
Just
again,
in summary, please.
right from objective 1, past, having several philosophies to guide one learner is not easy. 2, finding that we don't have a particular purpose of education itself is also disorganizing, simply because you don't know why you're going to school. You've been told go to school, but you don't know what you have gone to do there. And I have gotten some cases where some students have reached senior 6, they are joining universities and they don't know what to do at the university. And they are inquiring, what can I do? What can I do? And you're asking them all along these 6 years in secondary, plus 7 years in primary, those are 13 years. Someone does not know why they are at school, it becomes a concern. So all those from the foundation to the purpose, to now to liberate, to the way how education has been liberalized, you're going to find out that, you know, all these are bringing unethical issues. If you see this kind of information, for instance, curriculum focusing only on assessment, which is cognitive, and yet education is supposed to have both three H's, head, heart, and hands, but we are concentrating on the head. A lot of rote learning. Young children at nursery school going for boarding schools. There is a problem, sir.
Yeah, I'm seeing it, but how do you link that with unethical? I see that word as very heavy. Does it mean when this is happening, does it make it unethical?
At certain point, yes. And the reason why I would say yes is that maybe as stakeholders, we need to get on board and question these things. Why are they done like this? Can we protect the learner? Can we feel for the learner?
You are not answering my question. Even with all that you are saying, I'm saying, for example, if there is rote learning, if there is increased nursery, primary, boarding schools, and whatever, help me to link this with calling it unethical.
Okay, they become unethical in a way that when they come out as graduates, we are going to see the same way they were trained is the same behavior they are going to show at the workplaces. And no wonder that's why we have a high rate of corruption. For instance, let me quote one of the quotation I have here, where the Uganda National Bureau of Standards declared openly that he bribed the committee which was going to elect him as an executive. That person is a graduate of our system. And if this person is a graduate, this is how he has been trained. He knows, you know, bribing is okay. Now, when we talk about bribing, if we don't see unethicalness within bribing, then there may be some problem.
So do you think, for example, if a graduate is corrupt, is this graduate corrupt because of the system that has brought this student up, or is he corrupt by nature? Secondly, how do you explain a graduate who is not corrupt and has also gone through the
Let
same
me first
system?
respond to one question, please. One, should we explain that this graduate is corrupt by the system? Partly, yes. Why? Let me give you an analogy of preparing food. I like cooking. When you're cooking, you have these other ingredients you want to put in your food to taste differently, and you put them together, and depending on the portion you put is what you're going to get. And that's why you will taste on it and you're like, hey, this food tastes nicely, and then this other one doesn't taste. For those of us who like being in the kitchen, you taste on the food and you're like, no, this one is missing this. You can even tell the ingredient that is missing. So when we come back to the system, if someone has been trained that cheating is the order of the day, believe me, this person will come out as a super cheater, if that one exists, or as a super, you know, I don't know. But this person will come out when he's trained very well. Actually, I don't know if it is an article or it was a WhatsApp message where someone was addressing graduates, telling them, you know, there is a lot of corruption and it is so bad that we are training corrupt graduates. Those who are getting into scandals, let's look at the Mabat saga in our country. Most of those people are graduates, not so. So when we look at all these details, we discover that the way you prepare, the way you do things, because, okay, the way you do it matters. And also having in mind that we spend 19 years in school. If you took your child at baby stage to the nursery school, and this child has been trained all the way like that, believe me, you will find out that actually this child does not belong to you. It belongs to the school, and the school has imparted whatever they have put.
Okay, in the interest of time, we will leave it at that. But I really have a challenge as to whether, for example, it's our education system that trains these people, for example, to be corrupt. I would think really some of this corruption and some of the unethical behavior we see probably comes from any other source, and which you should argue out very well, rather than saying, because our system still produces very upright people. We have them, and they are within our public service and they are graduates. But let me move to the second question.
Please let me add on something there. When you look at other factors like, or other stakeholders within our system, their parents, which parents are also, most of them are graduates. And, you know, we have a proverb that when you steal while carrying a baby, you're basically teaching them on what to do. And, you know, babies don't use ears, they don't use what, they are just using eyes. So throughout, within our system or within our society, when you look at the things, the way how they are done, as long as someone is older than you, you get to think this is the way of doing things. Yes, the stakeholders matter, and the stakeholders are also belonging to the system.
Okay, Naomi, a few years back, the government, through the National Council of the National Curriculum Development Center, invested a lot of money and developed the new curriculum. Probably you have heard about the new curriculum that has been operational in the lower secondary school, especially I think now up to senior 4. There is no big hope that is before us that it will continue to high school, but that one is not for you to answer. But help me to understand, do you think this new curriculum recently developed in schools in Uganda, in a way, lines with your model? Did you consider it at all?
When we look at the CBC, actually, what is on paper is different from what is on the ground. The reason being that there is something I want to show you here. Yeah, let's look at this picture. When you look at it, it shows the expectations of the new curriculum and then you compare it with the old curriculum. And actually, for your own information also, I had a chance to take part in school practice this year, and I observed that in the schools I went to, most of them, they told the students, the teacher students, that they should not use CBC. Why? They consider it as a Kampala thing. And I also explained it in my work. We find that the way how our system is clustered is that it's as if we have different systems within one system. The way how Kampala is operating is different from up country. And also when I went into the villages, when I was collecting data, I also found out that, you know, the way how we are perceiving it is different. And I would say there is a discrepancy also.
Okay, so that's what in other words, you are telling us that the new curriculum was an effort that is not helping a lot?
The new curriculum, I have already said that when you read its principles, it is okay. But the challenge is at the implementation stage.
Okay, now maybe let me say something about your recommendations. You make very good recommendations, which I have gone through. And in your recommendations is where you develop a model to enhance education for graduates to develop their full potential. Now, in this model, you have indicated a number of components, but I was particularly interested in component number 6.3.6, which is on page 236. Where you, 236, are you there? Where you talk largely about involvement of stakeholders. And you mentioned many stakeholders, but I was particularly interested in the teachers. Now, when you talk about the teachers, you make a statement that they need to be remunerated in order to stabilize, and for the teachers to like their teaching profession is important to their motivation. I was moved by that recommendation. It's a good one. But how now, in your view, what do you comment about the science and arts pay, which is discriminatory, which creates a very sharp discrepancy and therefore does not motivate the arts teachers? How do you think these people who are not motivated can really achieve your model here when they are getting not even 50% of what the other counterparts are getting, and yet they are teaching in the same school, sitting in the same staff room, and all of them have been trained the same way? I wanted you to make a comment on that because I didn't find it in your work.
I actually have that section on arts versus sciences. And what I addressed there was that at the end of the day, when I made the analysis and interpretation, I said that we need to recognize that we are not the same. And I would also take you back to Maslow's concern that let the musician sing, let the artist draw. Being an artist teacher, it does not mean that is the end of the world. But what you need to know is that who are you and what are you doing and how can you innovate around your arts or being artistic, and then you change the direction. But of course, the issue of who gets how much, that one is not my decision to make here. What matters is you, the way you're gifted. How do you make things work out? That's the point that I'm trying to raise.
Okay, maybe just finally, Dean, this is really the last one. On page 242, you indicated some recommendations for reflections. I think you made about 5 of them. There you include a number of things. Now, these recommendations for reflections, I was wondering whom you want to reflect on them. If it is us to reflect on them, who will be reading your work, good, but for you now as a researcher, what is your reflection on them? You talk about things like homeschooling, international schools, which are increasing in Uganda. Talk about a culture in Uganda that forms the basis for beliefs and values. You are just throwing them there as recommendations for reflection. But whom do you want to reflect on them, and what would you personally say about them very briefly?
When I'm talking about those recommendations, I'm basically looking at educational stakeholders. Educational stakeholders are not just the Ministry of Education or teachers or lecturers. Educational stakeholders take us back to the parents. They take us to the back to the learners. They take us back to the trainers. They take us back to these different people. So I'm actually asking, why are we seeing, you know, the increase of international schools around? What is a concern? What is it trying to address? Can we make a stopover and think about it? And like, you know, what is it that is going on? It can't be normal things when things are changing trends. We need to think about it and reason out them well as educational stakeholders, not those ones who are in schools or institutions, but even those who send children to school, those who send who support them in one or the other, guardians and others.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very much.
Mm.
And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris. I know that one of the panelists is running from one thing to another, and I'd like Dr. Mpiangu to come and ask her questions or make her comment.
Thank you, Chair. Naomi, it's always very difficult to be with you in this kind of space because we share an office, but we also share many years of friendship. So put differently, I feel I'm part of everything that is going on because of the process you have walked. But I celebrate you today for bringing us here. And also, I won't make many comments because when the opponent stood and gave us a romantic description of your work, I don't think there is much for me to say, but I have some two little things to really say. I really like that you insist that each one of us has a divine mandate. And the only trouble I have is that it's difficult to see us continue with the mandate up to the model, the journey. As you take us through the findings, the model starts to faint a little. So it might be important to just go back and see. I'm also thinking you could be clever because you know that divine mandate is going to be contested by others who do not subscribe to that. So, but I'm thinking, because it's your main argument, because it's what you're pushing for, how do you tease it out in the model? That's one of my reflections. And if I'm off, it's okay. We are used to telling each other those things. Number two, I have a problem understanding what happens to the divine mandate. It seems earlier generations in Uganda, in the same formal education system, made it. They talk and we listen. What has happened to the current graduates that you have met? I mean, that you have met and they seem to have a problem. What is wrong? Is it that we are not doing it right, or is it that they are not taking it up the way we expect? Because I'm happy to encourage my students in class and tell them you can be great teachers. And some of them are promising great teachers, and others have already gone out as effective workers. But your findings, of course, worry. And your findings are not just yours, but also corroborated by the other literature that, the reports which give us the 63%, half-baked 38%, unready. So is it that we are not, is it that we are not understanding the mandate, or so and I think that's where the thing is, how do we treat this mandate? And of course, our parents, I have a feeling that each parent can very easily see from the beginning that this child is going to be something. We all, those who have brought up children, looked after children, you will have 10 of them, but you will know, you have 3 of them, you will know that out of these 3, this one is a monkey, is gonna climb, this one is a fish, she's gonna swim. But my question is, do we even allow them right from that time to swim? All I see is all of us pack nursery bags, we put in food, we take them to school. How do the parents ride on the divine mandate? What is your take on that?
I think, thank you so much, Dr. Christine. Before I get to divine mandate, allow me to take you back to what education is and how I brought out the definition of formal education. These 2 concepts are completely different. When you look at what education is to mold you, to bring out the best of you. In other words, if you go by it, it will help you realize your full potential. But when we come to the formal setting, as you described it, we are just packing, most of us are packing children to school, and we think things should happen there. And in a way, the parents are creating some gap of how to identify the monkeys, as we can call them, or how to identify the fish. So when we look at the formal setting and what education is, but again, with formal setting, we are basically looking at Western culture. We've been told, you know what? Western education is the one that can do it for us. But we have not stopped to ask ourselves, okay, can education take place outside the classroom, for instance? Is the parent able to guide this student, this child? Is there this, is there that? You know, we are not reflecting on all those issues. So we come up with conceptual problems first, then the stakeholders' responsibilities have issues, etc.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, from your model, what do you envisage? And since you interacted with some of these, critical stakeholders, the Ministry of Education and, the commission, those who are really working, closely with education, do you think, what do you think will happen to the model? Like, where do we start and how do we proceed? Because are we going to halt and find a way of starting? Because you seem to suggest that something is completely messy and needs an overhaul. How do we overhaul?
Okay, if we are talking about how to overhaul, the mother of education is philosophy. We need to get back to the foundation or roots. Then we start from there. As Uganda, what do we want? What kind of graduates do we want? And we define exactly what is the purpose of education. That's where I would start from. And that's why where I asked the graduates to let me know if their values, knowledge, and skills are missing, at what stage should it be? And most of them were like at another stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dean. And I would like to end by thinking aloud that a few more glaring decisions make me think about what you are grappling with. Because if you look at some of the people in positions of responsibility, if you went by the degrees, they shouldn't sit where they sit, but they are there. If you went by capabilities, maybe they are actually monkeys. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mpiangu. Naomi is still holding on very well. Are you just changing location? You want to stand now, or are you getting something? You need, okay. All right, thank you. So I would now like to invite Professor Helen Kavala to also ask her questions, make comments. Thank you.
Thank you, my dean. Dean, you're going to give me about another 30 minutes as. Okay, did you say no? On that note, I'll make sure that I don't use all the time that I should use. So a very good morning, friends. And Naomi, I'm just impressed by the entire thing, and I would like to really thank the previous ones. I don't want to repeat myself. I had a few concerns, but I'm just going to raise one. Because my role today was to listen, and we had a very good, thorough opponent. I don't want to repeat his words. He did a very good job already. Someone will wonder, how did you know? The defense is both physical and online, so we kept following. Now I would like to draw your attention to page 22. Just read for me your first line under section 1.16. It's the only concern I'm raising. I'm not going to delay here.
Divine mandate comes from the combination of two words. Do I stop there or I continue?
Sentence.
Divine and mandate, where divine comes from the Hebrew word equated to divinus in Latin.
I want you to read that word.
I can't read it.
And that's where my concern is. You know, this is a word in your work, and I'm wondering why on this particular part, you use the word Elohei without vocalization. And when we go down there, you use words with vocalization. Now, I know I have a few Biblists in the room, and I'm really being very selfish here as a Biblist. I'm going to advise, if it's allowed, Dean, that if you can't read this word, don't use it.
I had actually seen it before the presentation.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
The other issue that I would like to maybe bring to your attention is probably divine mandate is not a combination per se, but these are totally different words that you can that you're bringing together. And I would like also to comment on the table one. In table one, you make a reference to what you call the Bible Hub. Now, if I invited one of my fellow Biblists in the room, just seated over there, we would be disturbed when you use the Bible Hub rather than use the Society of Biblical Literature, which is the authentic one. But also, I strongly believe that this entire thing is in the wrong. It's here wrongly. It is redundant. It's not adding anything, because when you go to the section of the morphology, I don't know, you give us a verbal, you know, that's not morphology as far as linguistically speaking. So I don't want to make your day dark because it's already a bright day. I would like to end it here by saying, and this is also to all of us, if you have to invite anyone on this table, this is your table, you invite the guests and you allow the guests to speak. This guest is redundant, they are making noise and they don't have value addition to your work. Okay. The earlier you get them out, the better, because you're entering a conversation. For example, I was going to ask you, why are you choosing Elohei and you're not choosing Adonai? And when we go into that conversation, it will also lead you to another issue. I also had a little bit of a concern, but I don't want to follow it up. I'm finding it hard to know how you actually did action research on the measurement of divine mandate. what is the yardstick? Who actually tells us that this is the correct way or wrong way? And which divine?
Okay, if I can respond on that. I designed this work as an action research, and as I've already told you, I had different respondents responding to different things. So depending on the respondents I had, if it was those ones who were responding on ethics, education, and divine mandate, then we would discuss that. If it was on an educationist, then I just inquire what is taking place within education, I go. And then after gathering that information, also as part of the action group, then I did the analysis myself. Okay, this is divine mandate. This is what is taking
What's
place.
the authority you're using?
I am using the Bible.
The Bible is not an authority. That's the issue I'm raising.
Okay.
Because when you use the Bible to measure divine mandate,
Hmm.
I don't know which Bible you're using, first of all. And secondly,
I highlighted that I'm using NIV.
through the dean, I would like to end this conversation here because my background is biblical studies and I don't want to veer this conversation away from the philosophy. But I'm very sure you had a philosopher who is very entrenched in the Bible and my teacher of the New and Old Testament, Dr. Musana, and they know that when we are talking about divine mandate, not even the Bible is an authority on this.
Okay.
So it is a little bit dangerous, and your choice of text to justify the divine mandate has suffered lots of translations and interpretations, and there is a danger. So probably you want to be very careful from the start to explain why you want to understand it that way without entering the theological conversation around it, because it will take you to a totally different trajectory.
Okay.
Having said that, I really want to congratulate you. Thank you for holding forth and very best wishes.
Thank you.
Maybe before you leave that place, let's have this work. Let's say, with the expert that approach and the current site design, without bringing in the issue of action design in this one. Won't it be okay?
With due respect, I'm going to leave that to the committee, which is going to have that conversation, but also the supervisors. I hear you and I really have my position on that. But I'm just being careful not to declare my position, lest the candidate thinks it is the position. So it's a conversation, and definitely as Professor Nen raises it, when we give you feedback after this defense, you'll hear our voices clearly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. You should have used all the 30 minutes because we were getting excited again. So at this point, I've listened to different colleagues make their comments and ask questions. And I also would like to follow up on a few things, Naomi. So this thing called the divine mandate, I want to be sure that you say that you derive this from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you say that our education system was good until the Western kind of education comes in and disorganizes us. So in that way, would you then say that our education system before the missionaries came in was actually following divine mandate?
Again, I will have to bring out the issue of who is a human being. Because when we are talking about education, we are basically looking at how do we bring out the best within this human being? And
I
this,
think I'm going to interject because I think that is okay,
Mm.
how to bring the best, and you did explain that in your presentation.
Mm.
But what I just want to know, like in yes or no, is whether we would say that our education system or African education systems before the coming in of missionaries or, Western education, whether it followed the divine mandate. Would you say it followed divine mandate?
yeah, as long as they guided students, I mean the learners, to be what they want, how and what they were able to be, yes.
Okay, so I would push further, but I'm going to avoid that because now I was going to say, okay, so where were these people deriving this from? Because then most of their knowledge about the Bible, or unless it was there before, unless they were actually reading this Bible before the people who bring the Bible actually come and disorganize our education system. There seems to be a kind of contradiction there. And I think this is a question that the opponent raised, and you maybe you answered it. I didn't get the answer there, because if the missionaries are coming with the Bible and they're followed by colonialists, then I want to imagine, okay, I'm historian and I might be wrong. So I want to imagine they are the ones, it's the Bible they come with that then would educate us on this. So how is it then that these people who didn't have who are not reading the Bible were actually able to have an education system that followed divine mandate, and then the ones who bring the Bible come and disorganize the system? That's one thing I would want to get from. I would have wanted to get from you clearly. Secondly, it seems to me, and I might be wrong, that you assume that everybody, including the parents and the children, actually know divine mandate. So when people are going to school, they should be aware of the divine mandate and what will be expected of them. And I don't know if that is the case, because I like what you say, that most people go to school and they don't know why they go to school. And I'm one of those. I went to school. I didn't know why I was going to school, but it was time to go to school. Everybody was going, and I went to school. So, so I was just wondering about that. The other comment that I had is okay, because I don't belong very much to the other side of Dr. Onen. So you used mixed methods, and in your presentation, I was really looking forward to the qualitative data, but you killed my eyes with the statistics and tables and all that. And at one time I was saying, okay, now man, you talk to us also, those of us who don't know the statistics, since you used mixed messages. I don't know whether you just chose to mute the voices, because some of us then only got to hear the voices from actually from the opponent. That's when, oh, so there were voices actually in the dissertation. So I don't know if that was by choice.
That was because of the time I had. I have
No, but if you said mixed
choice.
methods, you have no excuse. There are things you spend a lot of time on where you could have actually told us about both. I think that's not persuasive. But also I think again that as an academic, we have to be careful what we say and not seem to make like sweeping statements. Because you speak about certain things with a lot of passion, that students at senior 6 don't know what they want to do at university and all that. But also you're not looking at the other side. You're not looking at the fact that actually the university system and the entry to the university is the one that eventually determines what you can do. So I could have ambitions of becoming a pilot, but my scores don't qualify me for that. So I think that you're being very harsh to your graduates without also talking about the system that actually sort of predetermines where you will go depending on the performance. And that was just a feeling that I had. I would like to ask you to take us to one of your slides, the slide before the conclusion, where you quote, I think you say you quote Mandela. Okay, so I think this is it. So I try to look at this because I look up there, it's Mandela quote. And then at the bottom is Madison Park High School, Boston. And so I was just wondering, where does the Mandela quote end? And where does this other one begin?
I forgot to put I want.
Okay, so maybe maybe for that. And then lastly, because I'm not a biblical scholar and I am somebody passing by on the streets, I was just wondering why this dissertation should not actually be taken to Professor Mugaga's college and not here.
You want me to respond?
Yes.
The reason why it should not go there is because I am discussing a central issue within a human being, or what affects the human being, who is already explained, who is created by the creator. And, you know, looking at the kind of education that we are giving him or her, looking at how we are taking care of him matters. So centrally, what kind of, how are we taking care of him in terms of education? To me, that is where the concern is.
And that can be handled by Professor Mugaga's school? The concern of how we deal with this human being?
He's looking at, for him, he will be looking at how to socialize, how to do ABCD, but who are you? Who is this? Who is the other? And why are you here for? It matters.
Okay, thank you. I will leave that to my colleagues in that department. I would now like to switch my hat so that okay, yeah, so we had one of the panelists online, and unfortunately his battery ran out and he dropped off. So Dr. Osim will not be able to submit questions to the candidate. So at this point, I would like to now invite the audience to make comments or ask questions. Please be precise because I don't have lunch. Be precise and we'll give the candidate time to respond. So by show of hands, the online audience, I asked you to submit your questions in the chat, so we'll read them there. I saw that one. That's the problem of sitting behind you, so I didn't see it.
I'd like to congratulate Naomi on this achievement, and thank you for the beautiful work you have produced. I'd like to ask, since you're in the area of ethics, religious ethics was part of the anchor of your work. I was a bit surprised that you did not discuss at least the the discussion that is in the area of religious ethics. Yes, the religious or the divine origin of ethics and evolutionary origin of ethics, because I think it's an area which is contested, and at least showing awareness that there is this discussion. But the way you presented it is almost taken for granted that ethics comes from God, and I think it's not yet an area that is settled. Maybe it would have enriched your work by at least acknowledging that there is that little discussion. I don't know whether you have a comment about that.
There is no. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Naomi, for the great presentation and a wonderful study. A lot has been said, but I want to re-echo what the chair just said. I know your focus and your unit of analysis is the education system, but the education system may not work in isolation. So I was looking at, did you echo, of course I didn't read your work, did you echo the system or do students have options to choose from? When you ask a question on students not knowing what they want to do they actually have options? I've had a student at my home the last week who is from a poor background and couldn't do a degree even when he would qualify. And he's been offered a diploma in Nakawa to do electrical and electronics engineering. He also wants to do surveying in Entebbe. And in Nakawa, he has a government sponsorship, but he wants to do surveying because he thinks surveying has more market. So it's not about him liking what he wants to do, but it's about the market, which you bring out in your neoliberal argument. But I think we could also look at the aspects of how the system has created an environment where students do not actually even have a choice to choose from.
Thank you very much, Naomi, for this beautiful presentation and study. My question is, as one who has traversed the education system and the National Development Curriculum Center and interviewed many students, I would like to ask you this new, I don't know what we call it, the new curriculum. What is it called? Our new curriculum that we are following.
CBC.
Yes, CBC. Would you say that it was well thought out and would it produce student graduates who are ethical? And if not, why do you think it would not? Thank you.
I will start with the last one on the CBC. When we look at the principles of CBC, they are basically focusing on competencies of the learner. And when you look at the competencies, yes, if the principles are followed, you get a graduate who can make it or who can realize their full potential. But what is on the ground, when I was interviewing these different stakeholders, especially the head teachers across the country, they told me that, you know, this thing was done in Kampala and these people did not train us well. And those they sent to us were more confused than the way how they trained them. So when they gave me those responses and later on when I was doing school practice, when I checked and I found they had actually kept CBC instructional materials and they are like, and even others don't even have books for instruction. So you cannot expect much where you have not prepared. That is a challenge still. And then I think for Dr. Anna, I think it was more of a comment, that's so. Then Dr. Kamoga, why am I tying my study to the biblical setting? I outrightly chose the Judeo-Christian ethics to guide my work. So looking at divine mandate coming from other areas, I do mention that we can also look at African traditional religion, Islam, Hinduism, and others. But for the sake of this work, for me, I was focusing on JCE. That's what I picked up. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Naomi, for this wonderful work. I am from Department of Philosophy, and I think this work falls under philosophy of education. And the recent person to work on this is Dr. Gigongo, Professor Gigongo, who wrote the work. I mean, his dissertation was on ethics in secondary education in Uganda. Now, having said that, I would like to learn something small. You said that our education system produces, I'm using these words, you may not have used them directly, but it's like it produces cheats and the corrupt. Now, if we have such people in our education system, who are produced by our education system, are they morally responsible for their action? If somebody is corrupt because of the education system he or she went through, is he or she morally responsible for his or her action? Now, secondly, how do your findings engage with the classical works of people like Socrates on the purpose of education? Thank you.
If I can pass to her after. Thank you very much. I was restraining myself so much to ask any question to Naomi today after the barrage that I'm hearing from the back here. But a very quick one. I would like Naomi, and I know you are tired after a long day, but who is a graduate in this study? At what point does a person qualify to be a graduate according to you in this study? Is it someone who begins at some point, someone who continues after a certain point? I would wish to have that clarification. I would have wished also to supplement what my colleague Chris talked about, but I think talked about that at length. Where is the ethicalness in this study? Where does it lie? At what point? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm called Susan. Naomi, congratulations. Thank you so much for the kind of work you brought to us. We are leaving this room thinking aloud, louder than we came in. I have a comment on the competence-based curriculum. Did you think about the fact that it's introduced at secondary school level, and these people are coming from another system in the primary section, and then when they get back to secondary, they're introduced into something completely new? I happen to have two children. One of them is amongst the pioneers. Another one has just started senior one. And so the senior one, when we went to check his work in second term, he was quite struggling. And so many of us as parents were concerned with what was going on. But then I had to think again that he has just come from a different way of teaching, and now he's instantly introduced to something new. So I had to go back home. I had to check the reports of the girl who is now in the pioneer group in senior 4 against this one and see what was happening at that time. And I realized that there is going to be some bit of time given to this one who has just joined to catch up. And indeed, by the time we ended second term, he was up to speed. So I hope that by end of year 1, he's going to be. So I think there is something a little more to bring out with the competence-based curriculum and how it is being delivered. Of course, you're very right. The reports are different that I received from these two different schools. What is the same is the score: 2, 3, 1, basic, moderate, and outstanding. But the way how they present it is different. So I think there is something more for you to point out when it comes to CBC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Naomi, do you have anything to say to the
Yes,
comment?
if I may just start from Susan's comment. I told you there is an article that we wrote about the CBC new wine in the old bottles. We discovered that actually we brought a new innovation within the old system. And when that one is done, we are able to get those discrepancies here and there. I hope we shall be able to sort it. Then Dr. Bernard's question, who is a graduate? I specified that a graduate in this study is a university graduate. I know there are many graduates at different levels, but this study focuses on the what? On the university graduate. Reason being that there is a general perception that when you don't have a degree in the formal education setting, then maybe you have failed, maybe you have done what. That is the way how we are looking at things. But there are several graduates, but for this case is a university graduate. And then what is the ethicalness within my work? The ethicalness within my work is where I'm bringing the purpose of creation to the purpose of education. I will deter from Nixon's stance of philosophy that, you know, these philosophers will say this. For my case, I'm looking at the reason as to why a human being was created in God's image. What is it that you have that you are able, that is able to be guided by the tool called education to enable you realize your full potential? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Naomi. I think we have a lot of comments online, and most of them are really comments and not questions. I picked out one question where someone says, does the candidate assume that indigenous religions conceived of God's divine mandate the same way as the Christian understanding of God's divine mandate? Probably this is something that you have talked, you've talked around, you've talked around already. So this comment might have come early. And so really most of these are comments and suggestions, like what I'm projecting now on the screen, where someone says that the candidate needs to polish her limitations. That goes on. But then here I said the candidate did not present the rationale for studying humanity's realization of divine mandate. Yet we need theoretical, methodological, empirical, analytical, and even epistemological reasons why someone should care about such a study. Rationale for justification for the study, well, it needs to be differentiated from significance. Of course, that is true, and I agree that justification is different. You'll get all these comments. Farouk will download and be able to share them with you. So I think that, yeah, that there are very helpful comments here from different people online, and you'll be able to read that. Now, in the interest of time, but also the noise, because of the people who are working the walkway to the main building, I would like to bring this phase of the defense to some kind of pause so that panelists can retreat to the Dean's office and pass a verdict, and then we'll come back. So colleagues at the table, let's go back the other side. Those who are not panelists, please stay around, take some water, talk to Naomi, and just be patient. We'll try to be quick. This message goes to both the online and physical audiences. Thank you. Shouting. Okay, I'll try to shout in the microphone so that you can hear me. Okay, so Naomi, we've discussed the feedback from different panelists, of course, focusing on your presentation, and the panel agrees that you pass, but you still have quite some work to do before we can accept that dissertation as worthy the PhD of Makerere University. So you've passed, yes, but you still have to do some cleaning up to do. I am just going to mention some of the things, but you get a detailed report from Secretariat. One of the things was that you really need to strengthen the problem of the statement and really conceptualize the study so that it doesn't seem as though you're asking a very simplistic question. The other one was that you need to streamline your methodology, and the very glaring issue that we all agreed you either leave out, or if you want to keep it, then you have to do a lot more work to convince us why it should remain there, is the bit of action research. We think that actually interferes with what you do in the work. And then the other one was that you remove the biblical aspects of the work, and the suggestion the reason this is suggested is that you do not engage very critically with the texts that you want to make reference to. So if you just mention things in passing and you leave them there, then you seem to assume that every reader perhaps knows what you set out to do. So the point is that if you want to stick to or to maintain the biblical aspects of the work, then you must be able to incorporate, what is the other word, Dr. Chris? I need to learn. Exegetical analysis, because in the present state, the panelists feel that you don't actually do that. And so you're going to have to choose, either I'm taking this out, or if I'm maintaining it, then I have to demonstrate this word that Dr. Chris has just mentioned, exegetical analysis. Okay, the other matter of concern is that you avoid making sweeping statements. I know that a number of colleagues here engaged you on the issue of education and corruption, for example. And the point is that it's not, I mean, as a scholarly piece, and yourself as a scholar, it's not really fair and reasonable enough to be blamed, to be sort of putting this corruption and education side by side. You can have a balanced conversation, but not make it seem as though it is the education system that has produced all these problems that we have in that direction. And then we want you to pay attention to the works of the scholars that you refer to. So if you mention something like, as Kanakwa has argued, then you also help the readers to actually understand that argument of Kanakwa, engage with it, but not just mention it in passing and again assume that people know what you're doing. In other words, we want you to be conventional and robust in the way in which you engage with other people's work. So be critical rather than just throwing things here and there. And lastly, for now, the work needs thorough, and I'm going to underline thorough editing. editing will help you avoid the repetitions. So sometimes we don't realize we are repeating ourselves when we write. But when other people read it, they say, but you just said this on this page and you're taking me back again. So if you get an independent editor, they could be able to detect some of those things and clean out the repetitions and meandering so that the work is as clean as it could possibly be. So as I've said, you'll get the detailed comments from Secretariat. But for now, I want to say that, yes, you will have to address these comments. You have up to 2 months. Or do you want to make it a week? To actually address the comments, you'll continue to work with your supervisors. And when all that is done and the compliance report is signed, you do the submission process. Again, the list of what comes with that is very clear and it will come to you from Secretariat. Did I forget anything, my colleagues? Okay, so thank you very much. I would like to bring this to a conclusion and I'd like to thank everybody for your time and patience. It's been a long one, but I'd like to bring this to an end right now. Congratulations again. I'm not going to say doctor because it's not yet. Yes. Okay, I did say earlier already, I don't have lunch. I'm sorry. We wish we could have lunch for all of us. Our budgets don't allow. So perhaps it's a moment to congratulate and celebrate with Naomi. Thank you very much for your time. Something comes in, maybe there is something to eat. Okay.
Can put a moment for her. Damn little photo moment for